Well, it's not every day that we get to say we have something in common with some of our favorite professional athletes, but today is such a day. Welcome in. It's Section 1904. It is the weekend recap. This is completely free. If you're a subscriber, we do appreciate you. If you're not a subscriber, hopefully we'll give you enough content here over the next 50, 60 minutes that will convince you that you should be subscribing to the Section 1904 podcast. I'm Darren Smith. He's John Gennaro. And the thing that we have in common with some of our favorite athletes is that neither John nor I, much like Manny Machado, Jackson Merrill, Xander Bogaerts, none of us had a hit with runners in scoring position either this past weekend. It was a dreary weekend at Petco Park, at least on the baseball front. Looked like 40-plus thousand fans were having a good time for the most part, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We'll get into that. We'll get into SDFC, dropping a couple of points at home at Snapdragon Stadium. But, John, neither one of us came through in the clutch, just like some of our favorite athletes out there wearing the brown pinstripes this past weekend.
You know what else neither one of us did this weekend? I'll speak for myself. I don't know about you. I didn't score a goal in an MLS game. Not a single one. Didn't see the ball go into the net on an official MLS pitch. My wife did. My wife went to my daughter's soccer game, and it was the last game of the season. So afterwards, they played parents versus kids, and apparently the parents won 1-0, and Rebecca Gennaro was the one and only goal scorer. So if the Wave needs someone, I think she might be available. But yeah, a lot of not getting any offense on the board for our San Diego teams this weekend. Yeah,
not a lot of scoring out there. Not a lot of scoring out there, actually, on the sports fields of play, which also is something that we can get into here over the span of the next 50 minutes or so. But as mentioned, this is a weekend recap, so we'll get into the stuff that happened in baseball on a local level. SDFC Saturday night, scoreless draw against Sporting Kansas City. I was on the call, have some thoughts on that. We also will touch a little bit on the NBA since we began the weekend with an exciting Friday night at Madison Square Garden. The New York Knickerbockers taking down the Boston Celtics. Who didn't enjoy that for a couple of hours? And also some of these amazing videos from over the weekend from the FA Cup at Wembley Stadium in London, watching Crystal Palace beat Manchester City, the celebratory city of Barcelona, watching the parade buses go through and all of the fun stuff that came along. I do love watching teams win things, whether I have an emotional attachment to the teams or not. I really do. So I understand that there were no wins at Petco Park and there wasn't a win at Snapdragon Stadium. Credit to Wave. Wave did win this past weekend. But I really was buoyed by watching a lot of the winning that took place all around the world, whether it was at Madison Square Garden or Wembley Stadium, or even through the streets of Barcelona. I really was buoyed by that. I can't get enough of it here, John, in the month of May. I cannot tell you how many times I've watched some of these videos and just allowed my algorithm to completely take control of my life so that I could just go from one video to another video to another video. I will say, I'm sure a lot of local San Diego sports fans are in a bad mood, in a rotten mood on a Monday, but a lot of those videos just buoyed me thinking about, hey, I have a connection. Haven't been to Barcelona recently, but also, what might be lying ahead for us and some of the teams that we all root for.
Yeah, it's interesting because, the last couple weeks we were doing the podcast, you were in Spain and you were following along with Spanish soccer and La Liga and Champions League. And then we had this conversation on Friday with Jeff Reuter that was about, American soccer and MLS and how it's dealing with, ICE raids and I'm not even going to call it deportations, but like imprisonment of people of a certain color in this country. And it was very funny to me because my algorithm this weekend was giving me Crystal Palace winning the FA Cup, including you sending me some videos of fans just like either in tears or not believing that it's real and just like this utter joy of the Crystal Palace fans winning the FA Cup. And then I got so many videos from Knicks fans of their actions after Game 6. My favorite of which I meant to send to you, and then I was like, there was some reason I didn't. It was like a weird time, middle of the night or something, and I'm like, I'll try and remember to send this to him later. Did you see the Knicks fans who found Brian Windhorst leaving that game?
Yeah. Yeah.
They ask him like, "Hey, what happened to the Celtics?" And he goes into his analyst voice, and he's like, "Well, the thing with and they're like, "We don't fucking care. Knicks in 6, baby. Knicks in 6. We're going on." And it's like, but it was funny because it was a very, it was a good contrast of like how they're celebrating a huge win for Crystal Palace and how the New Yorkers celebrate a big win for the Knicks, which is just like heckling and ridiculing people and just being as loud and kind of obnoxious as humanly possible. It says a lot about why we are where we are as a country, I think.
I guess. I mean, I will say, because at first I didn't like that. I didn't like that video at all. I didn't think it was a good representation for a fan base that I associate with, that I consider myself
Wendy
a part
laughed.
of. Yeah, and at least, the people that recorded it said, listen, he took this in stride. He really did take this in stride. It was just sort of us giving him a little bit of banter. The NBA is a banter league, probably more so than any of these other leagues. I didn't like that because I was like, like approaching a guy in the street, And I did see another video, and I don't know, it's also hard to know like when some of these videos have been recorded. That one was clearly recorded on Friday night with Windhorst leaving Madison Square Garden and Knicks fans finding him. There was another one, I don't know when this is from, but it was a Pacers fan wearing a Halliburton jersey, and somebody was like throwing a trash bag out. I was like, I don't need that. Like that, I don't
do
want.
that.
I don't like it, and none of that should ever be condoned by anybody under any circumstances. That is not just the exuberance of being excited about a team. But like some of those images out there on 7th Avenue, I thought were absolutely amazing. They were really, really great. And I'm gonna take it at its face value that Windhorst did take that in stride, and that the person who approached him, was not like uber aggressive and trying to be physically intimidating.
It was obviously just a setup for a joke.
Right.
And the second they said the joke, you could see Wendy crack a smile, and he was like, "Oh, I get this joke. This is funny."
Right.
That's the only reason I liked it.
Yeah.
Wendy was like, "Oh man, come on."
Yeah.
And he does that from time to time. Like he gets into his wagging his finger and you shouldn't be doing, but he just laughed and he was like, yeah, Knicks fans, like they're an extra level of crazy, and that's kind of why we love them. And sure.
Yeah. And by the way, like when people say, well, why don't you act like you've been there? Like we're never there. Like, don't tell us to act like we've been there before when we haven't been there in 25 years.
Yeah.
But I mean, listen, I'm sure that there were some Crystal Palace fans, by the way, outside of Wembley Stadium, who maybe were not the sweet, lovable, long-time suffering Palace fans that we saw inside of Wembley Stadium.
Some hooligans.
I'm sure that there were a few of them outside of the building. I know the way that fan base is wired. I know the way those supporters work. So, I'm going to suspect that, it wasn't all just raw emotion from people that have followed this club for 30 years. It's funny, though. When I was still working at iHeart, I remember somebody asking a question because the Knicks were in the postseason last year and the Padres were pretty good. And somebody said, what would you rather? Right? Magic wand time. What would you rather?
Sure.
Padres win the World Series, Knicks win the NBA championship. Mm-hmm. And I was like, these are two totally different things. Like I don't know how to really answer that question. And, truth be told, like I think watching the Padres win a World Series would make me so happy. Like I'd just be so overjoyed. It would be like for me watching Barcelona win. I'm so happy that they won La Liga. And I love watching all the videos from the parade and even the celebration at Montjuic on Sunday yesterday. And I do think, though, if the Knicks won, I would be an uncontrollable mess like the Palace fans. I think I honestly would lose my – I don't know how to explain it. Like the Padres winning would bring me such joy for me, for the people that I know that work there, for the fans that have supported me, that have provided me with an amazing life. I would be happy in a 360-degree way for all of them, for myself and for a lot of other people.
Right,
but when it comes to the Knicks, it's like it's just this lifelong commitment. This is the team that I've followed longer than any of them.
I was going to say there's a 7-year-old version of Darren Smith somewhere that all he wants in the world is for the Knicks to win a championship.
Right. And I would lose control of my emotions. I really do. I think like I would be one of those Crystal Palace fans that just and I thought it was great. I thought it was so touching. If you haven't seen these videos, I think they're still up there on my Instagram story feed. But that's how I would be with them. And I'm sure if you're dyed-in-the-wool Padres, been going to San Diego Stadium, the Murph, whatever, since back in the day. That would probably be the situation at Petco Park. But like, I'd be so happy. It would just, I had an analogy in my head that I don't think I want to use on the show. But it's like kind of like your mom and your wife. Like there's just it's like different things, right? And
it's different kinds of love. Yes.
Yeah, I'm telling you. And now 4 wins away from the NBA Finals, and man, we'll talk more about the finals coming up tomorrow. Since there is no games on Monday, no games Monday night. Western Conference Finals starts Tuesday. What a tasty matchup that is. Wednesday, Eastern Conference Finals with Knicks and with Pacers.
Two great. I mean, the matchups on both sides are very, very entertaining.
And pretty wide open. I haven't seen any odds, but I would tell you from where I sit, and you're probably more into it, not into it, but more dialed in than it seems like it's pretty open between the 4.
I wouldn't be surprised with any of these teams winning a title, honestly. Wow. So yeah.
I still would be. That's still my fandom. I mean, I still would be.
That's fine. I saw you probably follow Roger Sherman, former coworker of mine, and apparently Knicks fan. He doesn't tweet about the Knicks a lot. He tweets a lot about college sports. But
I thought he was like a San Antonio Spurs fan.
No, Knicks fan. And I think it's just because
everybody's a Knicks fan. What is Jason Sudeikis doing there sitting courtside? That guy's a Nets fan. Who allowed him in the building?
That one I agree with you. But Roger actually has been a Knicks fan for a really long time, if not his entire life. And yesterday he had a tweet during the Nuggets Thunder game when it was still good and it was still close. And his first tweet said, "Wow, what a good basketball game. A game also played by the New York Knicks." And then he replied to himself and he was like, "This is what it's like talking to me right now. I just tie everything back to the Knicks."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same. I know. Trust me. I mean, it's funny. I just opened my phone for a brief second for something completely unrelated to this conversation, and a picture of Walt Clyde Frazier popped up. So
wait, I actually do have a question about this because I saw this morning Bill Simmons said in his Ryan Russillo post game over the weekend podcast that if he said if the Knicks got to the finals, and Russillo kind of was like, well, if they win the championship, if this Knicks team, I know you don't think it's a possibility, but if this Knicks team won the championship, Jalen Brunson is immediately the greatest Knick of all time, right? If he's not there already, Simmons was basically saying dragging them to the finals.
Bias, though. I mean, I don't know. Ahead of Walt Clyde Frazier?
That's what they said. They said if this Knicks team wins the title, he immediately takes over from Clyde as the greatest Knick of all time. And I think it's a good conversation. I think people in New York might actually pick Clyde, but it's close. It would be close. It'd be an interesting conversation. I hope we get to have it.
Yeah, I mean, it would elevate him to a place where he would be in that conversation. Walt Frazier, for those that don't know, had one of the greatest Game 7s in NBA Finals history. And I'm doing this off the top of my head, so I might get a couple of numbers wrong. I want to say 36 points, 19 assists, and 17 rebounds in a Game 7. This is a guard. This is a guy who's still around the Knicks as a broadcaster, who you might have seen even if you don't know who you were watching. He was wearing a bright yellow Puma shirt on Friday night, Game 6 at the Garden.
He looked about 35 years old. Phenomenal
player. And he's known for his outfits, and he's known for his language. He's known for, his language, his style of broadcasting. He does a lot of swishing and dishing and rhyming and jiving and all. And, that's his whole thing. But truly one of the greatest basketball players that's ever put on the Knicks uniform. And I'd have a tough time immediately putting Jalen Brunson ahead of him or ahead of Patrick Ewing. But in terms of what their status would be, yeah, you saw what happened with Karl Anthony Towns at a Mets Yankees game yesterday. He got a huge standing ovation. They introduced him because that's the one thing that everybody agrees on. For whatever that weird moment in time was about the Nets, we're back to normal. Nobody gives a shit. No offense to Joe's side, nobody gives a shit. So that
bring him to San Diego. I'll care about him.
Yeah, and that's why I object to Jason Sudeikis. You jumped on that trend, went out there to a different. No, I don't know who.
Billy Crystal doesn't go to Lakers playoff games.
Thank you.
Please.
Now Spike is interesting because somebody in our group chat pointed out that Spike Lee's also spent a little bit of time at the Nets. And I don't know. Spike gets a pass for me. Nobody's represented the Knicks more than Spike. For better or for worse, he has been there. But I don't know. I don't know. Let's talk about that if it actually happens, which of course it won't. That's the other thing about, the Padres versus the Knicks, I'm like, well, listen, I'm resigned to the fact that I'm never going to see this with the Knicks. I'm 52 years old. I'm never going to see this. I'm resigned to that fact. Then again, I watched Crystal Palace fans celebrate the FA Cup. I watched Newcastle fans celebrate the Carabao Cup. So maybe in my lifetime, I've seen the Cubs win a World Series. I've seen the Red Sox win a World Series. So maybe it could happen.
I know we're never going to push gambling on people, but occasionally they're good for just checking odds and seeing what the odds are and setting your expectations accordingly. Would you like to guess on who has the best odds to win the NBA championship?
Oklahoma City.
Yeah, by a mile.
Yeah.
They're negative 180.
Yeah, they should.
The Knicks are second at plus 475.
And that's probably just the popular. That's also probably boosted a little bit because it's a team from New York. So it means that there's some money coming in on there. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, Petco Park, John, I'm gonna just I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm just gonna rattle off some numbers here. All right.
Please do.
Player A, 3 home runs, 20 runs batted in, 20 walks. Player B, 3 home runs, 20 runs batted in, 21 walks, 6 errors. Versus 3. What 2 players do you think I'm talking about?
I'm going to assume the second one is Xander. I think the first one is Merrill?
Manny. That is Manny and Xander. Both of them with 3 home runs. Both of them with 20 runs driven in. Manny has 1 more walk than Xander Bogaerts. 3 more errors than Xander Bogaerts. Now, I should balance
Manny's the one with 6?
Yeah. I should balance this out by saying that currently, according to Baseball Reference, Manny has the second highest WAR on the team. I should balance that out. And he has about 14 more hits, and his slash lines are better. But 3 home runs for Manny. Jackson Merrill has more home runs. Luis Ariz has as many home runs. Ilias, the catcher, has as many home runs as Manny Machado. For as much as we've talked about, how poor it's been for Xander Bogaerts, I'm not saying Manny's been poor. I mean, objectively, Manny's been better, but it's not as dramatic as I would have thought when I started looking around a little bit at some of these numbers today. I'm not saying he's to blame singularly for what happened this past weekend. They got swept by a pretty good Seattle Mariners team. I'm okay with that. I'm like Mike Schilt. I'm not going to alibi it. I hate when he says that, by the way.
I'm not going to alibi it.
What is that? Is he using that word
terrible.
right?
That's terrible English. You can't use alibi as a verb.
Well, he does all the time.
Yeah. Okay.
Is it a verb? We should probably.
No, it's not a verb.
I've never used it as a verb, but he uses it as a verb on a regular basis.
It's a non-physical noun. Like it's a thing. You have an alibi. You own an alibi. Like you don't alibi someone. There used to be a bar in San Diego called Alibi. I don't know if it still exists, but
it does. It does. Yeah, I love the Alibi.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on Washington.
Yeah, that makes sense. So my counterpoint to you,
one of those two.
I think maybe university.
No, actually, it is a verb. You're wrong. Offer an excuse or defense for somebody, especially by this is dictionary.com. Alibi can be used as a verb. Offer an excuse or defense for someone, especially by providing an account of their whereabouts at the time of an alleged act. Okay.
You can't. Okay, whatever. I'm not going to fight with the English language or Google. Slugging percentage for Manny Machado, month by month over his career. April and March is 475. May is 458. June, it jumps to 520. July over 500, 504, August 515. So power for Manny seems to come in the summer months, June, July, and August. There was actually a Blue Sky post about this the other day where I think our buddy Alex Pena from Chromatic FC mentioned that Manny heats up after May, to which I replied he's a big Northern Hemisphere guy because... You get it? It's a good joke. I was very proud of it. I wanted to run it out again. But yeah, I don't know that we can look at Manny's power numbers just yet and be like, well, he's lost all of his power. It's kind of what he does.
Not my point. My point is that one player, right? Player A in this conversation, as certainly here on this podcast on Section 1904 and other places, has been panned and talked about and discussed at great length in terms of his contract and his value, and player B, I don't think has really been in that same kind of conversation. I agree with you. At the end of the year, I would fully expect Manny is probably going to be where we expect Manny to be this year, right? But, in terms of what happened at Petco Park this past weekend, 0 for 7 Friday night, runners in scoring position, 0 for 8 Saturday, 0 for 6 yesterday, 0 for 21 for the weekend. I'm glad everybody else did that work since I got up early this morning at 5 o'clock and actually went through box scores to do it. Only then to have it show up in my inbox. And this is another benefit for those of you who subscribe to Section 1904. You want a front row seat? You will have all this information delivered right there to your inbox every single day if you subscribe section1904.com, because I saw that you also did that work, and so did everybody else who covers this team. Maybe it was the bright lights, John, of the Vetter Cup that the Padres, they shrink in the biggest moments when the lights are brightest, and the pressure of the Vetter Cup just got to them, and they found themselves unable to perform under these circumstances. Could be.
So here's my take as I knock my headphone out of my ear. Here's my take. In a major league lineup, I think you can have like one hole. And I don't mean one spot that's a hole. I mean like one area where you have like 2, maybe 3 not so great hitters near each other. As long as that is pretty far away from the top of your lineup, you can survive. Because if Tatis and Arise get on base, you can't just like pitch your way down to Diaz and Hayward, like without walking in runs, right? Or giving up big hits. But against the Mariners, Machado was bad. Bogarts was bad, and Merrill was bad. And we found out today that the reason Merrill had like tape on his hand was he's been dealing with a blister, which I think it makes sense to either be like, hey, Merrill was dealing with a blister, or Merrill is still coming back from missing so much time. Like, you can't expect him to just beat Jackson Merrill all the time. But if
by the way, Jackson Merrill has one more home run than Manny Machado and Xander Bogaerts.
Yeah, he's got 4. And Gavin Sheets has 6. Yep. Gavin Sheets has twice as many home runs as Manny Machado.
Mm-hmm. Jay Cronenworth has as many home runs as Manny and Xander, too.
And here's the thing about Gavin Sheets having 6 home runs. I think his career high is like 18. Like, it's really not. He's not the power hitter that he hasn't historically been this kind of power hitter. But yeah, I mean, they just had too many holes in the lineup this week because Hayward is a 0. The catching position is like, it's feisty when it's in the batter's box, but it's not threatening. And if those are your only 2 holes, you're great. You can work with that. But having 2-3 other holes, especially right in the middle of the cleanup section of the lineup, that's going to keep you from scoring runs. And that's why they scored 1 run a game for 3 games in a row. They need either Manny and Merrill and Xander to hit better, which they will. That's baseball. Or they need better solutions for left field, which I think they're starting to panic about. I said yesterday that like putting Gavin Sheets in left field yesterday so that you could get Hayward's bat out of the lineup looked like panicking to me. And it showed to be some level of panicking in that Gavin Sheets was terrible in left field when tested. Because he's not that guy. He's a DH / occasional backup first baseman. That's what we've seen throughout pretty much his entire career. So
now you say he looked terrible. Are you judging that based on the one play where he obviously loses track of the ball and it lands behind him? Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I'm going based off that.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I think they're starting to freak out a little bit about having Hayward's bat in the lineup because it only really works if the rest of the lineup is doing well. And you can't count on the rest of the lineup doing well all year long. That's not how baseball works.
All right. And this is what game? Where are we? 20, 30, 45. So about 120 more. Do I have that right?
45, 100, and yeah.
Okay. One thing I will say on Gavin Sheets, and I'm going to put this a little bit, and I'm not around this every day, so I don't have access to clubhouse and dugout banter and all that sort of stuff. Maybe someday. Maybe when we get Section 1904 amongst San Diego's favorite podcasts in the UT Readers Poll, will be granted a credential so we can go and sniff around and all that sort of stuff. But I will just say this, because I got a text from a friend. He's like, "Can you believe they're putting Gavin Sheets in left yesterday?" And I was like, whatever. It doesn't. This isn't impacting my life yet, right? I watched the video, and this isn't criticism of the people who cover the team. Just to be clear,
Sure.
I watched a video. Marty went and talked to Schilt about Jason Hayward, I guess, has not played much. And
Yeah.
she went up and was asking
benched.
some questions. And I just was watching. I was like, oh, God, this is so boring. And it's not that I'm not knocking anybody who covers it. I'm like, yeah, we all get it. You took a shot with Hayward. It doesn't seem like it's working out.
Right.
You're going to have to address this at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But regarding Sheets, I saw the play. And, I immediately thought about a conversation that I had with our wedding officiant, our dear friend Barry Axelrod, who's passed away a little bit more than a year ago, who was a player agent, who represented lots of players whose names including Craig Biggio.
Yeah.
And Craig Biggio was, a catcher and a second baseman, and then the Astros asked him to play left.
Yeah.
And when they did that, it was a little uncomfortable. It's like, what? I thought I was a pretty good infielder. And the advice they gave him was very simple. We understand you're not a left fielder. So play everything in front of you. If the ball goes over your head, that's on the pitcher. So don't worry about it.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I like
and
that.
hit the cutoff man. Just do the simple things. And
Yeah.
when I saw Sheets yesterday, I was like, now, did they tell him, what are they telling him about playing left field there?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, we understand that a good left fielder probably can track that ball back to the track and maybe make a good defensive play.
It was not an easy play, no.
It was not an easy play, but if you're Gavin Sheets, I can't imagine that this coaching staff didn't say to him, listen, what we need you to do is go out there and be competent, right? Just go out there and just do the simple things. Hit the cutoff man, play the balls in front of you. Don't try to track a ball back to the track and make it, that would have been a good catch for an everyday left fielder, I think. I only saw it on my phone. So I just wonder, is that a moment where the coaching staff told him specifically how to play, or did they not? Because it makes everybody look bad, right? Now all of a sudden you have a pitcher who's like, geez, what are we doing? It look terrible out there. You look at the lineup, you're like, well, okay, we have to put Gavin Sheets out there. We like him. We got to get his bat in the lineup. That's going to help me as a pitcher. But, pitchers also want to feel pretty good about the players who are behind them. And, now all of a sudden you see a play like that, and you can't help but be a pitcher and be like, oh, geez, what are we doing? And now Sheets is like, oh, man, that's bad. And, the coaching staff's probably second-guessing itself a little bit. As opposed to just do the little thing, man. I'm not saying that, you can't go out there and try to do something that, is going to help your team win, but I can't imagine a situation, situationally that you aren't thinking to yourself, just play the ball off the wall, man. Let's not make this look any worse than people already think it probably is.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I don't know if every team has this, but the Padres over the last, 20 years, 25 years, really like taking players that are not outfielders and trying to put them in the outfield. I mean, we saw your boy Phil Nevin play the outfield. We saw Jed Jerko play the outfield.
Another Barry Axelrod client, by the way, who was told not to dive in the spring training game, and he did anyway, and he messed up his shoulder. But anyhow, go ahead.
Nevin?
Yeah.
We saw Jerko do it. We saw Headley do it. Will Myers change positions a million times. And this has actually been one of my criticisms of AJ Preller, is not understanding that there is some connection between defense and offense. And if Gavin Sheets is having the best hitting year of his career playing DH, maybe if you make him a left fielder, he will be less good as a hitter. Yesterday, he went 0 for 4 with a strikeout. As a matter of fact, he has not had a multi-hit game since they were in Colorado several series ago. And he's been playing a little bit more first base and obviously left field. And I don't know. I feel like they gave up, not that we need to make this a whole left field thing, but I feel like they gave up on Tirso Ornelas and Oscar Gonzalez and the other options, even Connor Joe, although he looked awful. The other options that it wasn't just supposed to be like Jason Hayward is our left fielder or Jason Hayward and Brandon Lockridge is our left field. They had other plans and they just kind of tried them. We're like, nope, that's bad. Nope, that one's bad too. Oh, this is bad. And now it's like, okay, now we're to Gavin Sheets is the left fielder and Iglesias, who honestly I'd rather have Iglesias in left field. He's been fine when they put him out there. But it's like, oh, we have to replace Jason Hayward's bat because he's so bad. So we're going to have someone play out of position in left field again. When we started the season by going like, you know what? AJ Preller was right. Defense at catching and defense in the outfield trumps, let's get big time expensive hitters in all of these spots. And now they're just going away from it. They're like, oh no, Gavin Sheets in left field. And maybe Maldonado is going to be replaced by, Luis Campusano or something. It felt like what they had was working, and it just feels a little bit like they're going away from it. And in that regard, it feels a little bit like, I don't know, losing an identity, letting go of the rope. But it's easy to say these things after you get swept by the Mariners.
Of course. And I will say, like, I don't 100% object to the idea. Hey, Gavin, can you go out there and just, we're not expecting much from you. Like I said,
give us a game.
Yeah. Like
that's fine.
I'm it's not ideal, right? It is not an ideal thing. But yeah, I also remember when they tried to move Will Myers to third base, and you could tell that was calamitous from the jump.
Yeah.
Right? Like that was a complete disaster. He ended up getting hurt on like a ground ball during a infield drill. He wasn't paying attention. It hit him in the face.
Yeah.
And he just was never into that. And I have no idea, like, if Gavin Sheets is like, oh man, like, I don't know enough about it to know really, how he truly feels. I just know, like, it's not great when you're like going to do something like that. You're gonna try something and you have a moment where it just doesn't. It looks like that, and like that doesn't inspire confidence across the board. Because listen, Gavin Sheets probably a great guy, but he's even thinking to himself, he's like, oh man, I don't know. We talked a little bit about what the magic of Bruce Bochy was, and part of it is with Boch, it's like players trust him that if he makes a call to go ahead and do something, that he knows what he's doing, and I can trust him because he knows what's going on here. This isn't going to erode any trust, I don't think, in Mike Schultz, but it's just not a good look, in the final game of a weekend where you get swept. All right, listen, I saw a little bit of this banter that really no harm, no foul because the Dodgers lost all their games. Is that loser talk for you? Do you care about that, or is that just loser talk?
I think that's trying to make yourself feel better, but I also think like it's such a long season that you can't be emotionally invested in not just every game. Too. Not just every game. You can't be emotionally invested in every week. Like there just have to be some weeks where you just throw your hands up and go, "What the fuck ever?" Like we'll do better next week. Right, yeah. And that's kind of
May 19th. I'm getting ready for my Memorial Day barbecue.
Yeah, here's the thing: the Dodgers are going to be better than this, and the Padres probably are too. We should focus on that instead of looking at the standings on May 19th when they really matter.
Right. I just figured it's like my once a week check-in on the standings, and the records are virtually the same anyway. Padres have played 2 fewer games, so Anyhow, I think it's fine. That's my ultimate takeaway. That's my summation after 30 minutes of this. It's fine.
No, I think Schild had a good quote on this, which he was like,
"Not going to alibi it."
Not going to alibi. I saw a thing where he said, like, look, I really like winning, but you don't really learn anything about your team when you win.
Yeah.
He's like, times like this is when you learn, like, what your weaknesses are and how strong you are mentally and your ability to adjust and move forward. And he's right about that. Like, these things happen in every single baseball season. You would prefer it to happen in May than happen in September? Cool. It's happening in May. Figure it out.
Yeah. I like that Seattle team, though. I do like that team. I like the cut of their jib.
Yeah, I mean, look, here's the thing. They're one of the teams, and there's a handful of them around baseball, where it just seems like there's an element of fun to their games, to their clubhouse, to their marketing. I mean, they had the Cal Raleigh, like, big dumper bobblehead. Like, they lean into stuff that I feel like the Padres and other organizations, I'll throw the Dodgers in here too, are like, no. That's a little too risque for us. We're here to play baseball like it's an office environment. And I like the Mariners and a couple other teams that are like, it's a game. Let's have fun. Let's have fun with our fans. Let's have fun for our players. Let's not lose the fact that this can be silly and serious at the same time. I like that.
Yeah, especially on May 19th.
Yeah, exactly.
Like 120 or whatever it is, 15 left. Ugh.
Yeah. No, I have a buddy who's a big Mariners fan who just sent me a picture of a broom at the end of the game yesterday, and I just wrote back and I was like, "Hey man, enjoy the regular season, wins when you can get them." And he was like, "Yeah, because I'm a Mariners fan. We can't root for the playoffs." I was like, "Exactly. We got different goals here."
Yeah, and I would say, like, on the list of things that I'm personally invested in, this is not near the top.
Sure.
But, I know that people that subscribe to this podcast are really dialed in on the pods, and, we're paying attention, but again, it's okay.
Yeah, it's and that's what I want people to get out of this podcast is that you and I are always going to be authentic. And part of that is we've been watching these teams for a long time, and we know that, sometimes they're just like this for a little while. And come September, you never think about it. It's in the rear view, or it's something you overcame, but it's not this big. It's not going to be the story of the season that the Padres offense has fallen apart. They'll be different next week than they are this week.
And I still am going to bet that Manny Machado will finish the season with more home runs than Luis Arraez. That's just
almost undoubtedly.
You think?
Assuming they're both healthy.
All right.
Can we talk about something? I want to talk about something much more exciting. I want to talk about turf, Darren. Let's talk about turf and grass and watching it grow.
Man, a developing situation, wouldn't you say? Yes, there was it was interesting to see Mark Ziegler out at SDFC training on Friday. I've not seen Mark out there. Now, I've been to almost every one of the training sessions open to the media, including some that have not been open to the media. And I will say, oh, wow, Mark Ziegler is here. Mark Ziegler's here. What's Mark doing here? Mark usually has a very specific purpose when he shows up, and it's not his regular beat, which is San Diego State basketball. I did see Mark also on Saturday night. Talked a little bit about Miles Bird and the NBA Combine. It sounds like he's going into the NBA.
It
sounds like it's like really 50-50. I won't. Mark and I had a nice chat, and I won't say anything that would be weird for Mark, but he said it's like 50-50, that he's performed really well as anybody at the Combine. But also there are some people who are like, no, he needs a little bit more at the college game. He might want to take the analysis that we provide him and go back to San Diego State, but we'll see. I don't think that's for today. But when I saw Mark out there and then I heard the questions that he was asking about the field, I was like, oh, okay. I can tell which direction this one's going. I've been around enough to know this is the way these things work. And I will admit, I didn't notice the field. You made something, a mention of it. I hadn't really noticed it because I was in Spain.
I mentioned it on Wednesday when you were flying back. I mentioned it in the Section 1904 Discord just because I didn't want to stir up shit on social media.
There was a Colorado game.
And all I said was like, this field looks rough already. I think it was the first half of the game. I was like, this field looks rough, and they got another one of these games in like 3 days, and it's probably going to be worse. And then Mark was there, and he got Mikey Veras talking about it, which I was a little surprised about.
I was a little surprised too, and I give Mikey credit for what it was that he had to say. I don't think it was anything that was too damning, but SDFC continues its homestand amid concerns about Snapdragon Stadium field conditions. This is the Union Tribune's words. These are not my words. And Mark wrote this story a little bit about what's going on. He tried to get CJ Dos Santos, the goalkeeper, involved in this conversation because a lot of where the grass is at its worst on the field is right in front of the goal mouth. And CJ wouldn't bite. He's like, hey, we both got to play on it. No big deal. I'm not going to alibi it. Yeppe kind of talked about, I thought I missed this because I was interviewing CJ, but Yeppe Turskov, the captain, said, we talked about it after the last game. You feel it, especially progressing through the game, it gets a little loose. There's a lot of sand already put on the pitch, which probably would mean not that it's struggling, but a couple of games maybe too much on it. I don't know. And then Mikey was asked, and Mikey took a very diplomatic approach at first. He's like, well, I love the grass here on our training ground.
Which I thought that was incredible because
it is immaculate because I was standing right there when Mikey said it, and it is an immaculate field that they have at their training ground at Sequam.
Now, granted, I guess they're not playing games there, so they're not probably as vigorous with their movements on that field, but I have to imagine that the grounds in the field out there in Valley View or wherever they are, Sequam, is much harder to maintain weather-wise, and they don't have like a stadium that was supposed to be built with this in mind. Like the Snapdragon Stadium, I was reading an article a couple weeks ago. If you ever drive by at night, sometimes their lights look pink. Apparently, this is like their growth lights that they can turn on that shoot like UV rays down to the grass and help it grow even in the middle of the night. Like, they're supposed to have this figured out, and the field is just terrible. And I think it was Ziegler's story was talking about they changed the type of grass they use, and they've resodded it like 8 or 9 times since opening it. This just seems like a mess. And then you were reminding me of the wave went through this last year when Landon Donovan was their coach, right?
Yeah, actually, everybody thought Landon was just being shitty, because of the whole Soccer City, San Diego State thing, right? Landon was taking some shots as the interim coach of San Diego Wave. He's like, this field sucks. Like, this isn't good enough. This is a problem. And I know for a lot of people, and, you can imagine who those people are, they sort of took it as, oh, okay, that's just as Landon. Landon's being a shithead because the whole still raw, the Soccer City stuff.
He's
all that
bitter,
right. And listen, there was a bit of me that wondered the same thing. If he was taking the opportunity to take some shots at it. But when it got to the point where the league is like, you can't play on this field. We can't play here. We're going to have to move this game, which was the final game of the year, which was Fan Appreciation Day. We cannot play a game on this field. That was a real problem. 2 weeks later, they moved that November 3rd home game to Louisville. So I think I have it right. I think that was their last game. It was supposed to be the Fan Appreciation game. Like, what a terrible thing. I went to Alex Morgan's final game at Snapdragon Stadium. And I remember thinking, here's a legend. Here's one of the legends of the sport, right? One of the greatest soccer players that this country's ever produced, male or female. And like, she's standing on the 20-yard line, with all these divots all over the field and the San Diego State numbers. I'm like, geez, like I could have ended a bit better. But, the visual itself was what it was. This is what you also agreed to play on. And, I did think that Mikey's commentary, when he was asked about it, he said, listen, training field's great. Stadium field can improve. And he went on to explain why this isn't whining, but this is like an actual plausible concern for them based on the way they play. Yeah. And, if you follow soccer, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, I'll just try to, give you the cliff notes here. They play a game where they want the ball and they pass the ball a lot. They pass the ball more than anybody else in Major League Soccer. And in order to have the passing, timing, all of the stuff that they work on their training ground, in order for them to be successful, to take everything that they train, to take everything that they do in practice, and to apply it to a game, you can't have the ball just take weird bounces and bumps all over the place because there's a divot filled with sand.
Yeah.
And, that this is a conversation already in the middle of May is maybe a harbinger of other things to come this summer. We'll see. But that's what he's talking about. He's like, this does impact us. And then Adrian and I did the game on Saturday, and Adrian made the point a couple of times that he thought there were some moments. And, I saw some passes. Now, it also rained, and it's also the third game in a week. And I understand that there might have been some tired legs out there, and a little bit of the moisture might have gotten into the ground, and it's not the greatest drainage field that we've ever seen.
Yeah.
And, I saw some passes, though, where I was like, whoa, like, I've not seen that player do that before.
Yeah,
Godoy had one where he kicked the ball and the ball kind of took off at a weird angle. Now, he's a 35-year-old playing his third game in a week. Maybe. But also the other part was maybe the field was doing some funky things, sprinkling a little bit of moisture, which was unusual and was completely... Did anybody forecast that? And now you're like, oh, well, it's the combination of all of these factors. Maybe it played a role in the way the game was played. I wouldn't say 100%. A lot of that had to do with Kansas City. Kansas City came in here and was all about goal prevention. They weren't interested in trying to go ahead and score any goals in this game. We'll get to it in a second. But, Adrian made the point a couple times during the broadcast. He thought a couple players went down. He's thought that the ball flight was a little bit odd. He saw the ball bounce a time or two. It just feels like it might be a story.
Yeah, I was shocked is the wrong word. Impressed is the wrong word. I was taken aback when Chucky got pulled from this game in the, 80th minute, somewhere around there. Because Adrian said something to the effect of, Chucky probably should have had 1 or 2 today, if not for the rough field conditions. What was that? You having an earthquake?
I do not know the answer to that.
Okay. Hopefully no earthquake. Hopefully your wife's okay. Yeah, I was taken aback when Adrian said that he thought that Chucky should have had 1 or 2 goals, if not for the field conditions. Because, A, I thought Chucky was terrible. I thought Chucky had a rough game. And I don't have a sharp enough eye to be like, oh, that's the field conditions or whatever. But I didn't see him slipping, falling. You know, maybe he got off to some less of those like runs where he kind of takes off and he seems like he's the fastest guy on the pitch for a minute or two. So maybe that's what he was talking about. But Adrian is not a regular public critic of the team or of the stadium or of the pitch. I'm not saying he fluffs the team or he's a fanboy or anything like that, but I think he understands that his job is to relay the information and not necessarily give his opinion, and he does a great job of that. And I'm very happy that he's SDFC's play-by-play guy, but yeah, that struck me as a little odd, and that's when I was like, whoa, this is not just Mark Ziegler, needling SDFC or needling Snapdragon Stadium or needling SDSU. This is a serious thing. Now that Mikey's talking about it, Adrian's talking about it stole goals in a 0-0 game. Like, he was like, oh, I think Chucky should have had 1 or 2, and it's a 0-0 game. He also said at halftime, he predicted that Ilosky would come in and score a goal. And Ilosky came in, and he's like, here he is. And then he never got anywhere near a goal. And it's like, is Adrian wrong? I don't think Adrian's wrong. I think he was just kind of looking at the pitch going, well, that's not exactly what I was expecting.
Yeah, a couple things there. I don't know that I would say Chucky was terrible. I don't think anybody was terrible. I really don't.
I just didn't think Chucky had an impact.
No, I don't think anybody had an impact.
Yeah.
It was a scoreless game where you had a couple of shots on target. And actually,
because I bashed him last week, I feel it necessary to say I thought Luca De La Torre played a good game. Like, he didn't score, but he was on the ball. He was moving the ball. I think he took a couple shots on goal. Like, he just looked a lot more involved to me this week. And I saw someone after the game kind of tweet at, I think, Section 1904 and go like, hey, if they had listened to John and started Ilosky instead of De La Torre, they probably would have scored a goal and won here. And I'm like, no. I thought Luca played really well.
Yeah, I think scoring was going to be tough to come by no matter what.
Yeah.
It just was that kind of game. And, a lot of that was Kansas City, and I thought SDFC really sort of struggled to find a plan B, because we know what their plan A is. And, I will say this, I don't like what Kansas City did. I don't like that style. I don't like anything about it. I don't think it's good for the game. That being said, they don't have any obligation to play the game that San Diego Football Club wants them to play. They don't have any obligation to play the game the way I want them to play it. Like, who gives a shit what I think? Who gives a shit what Mikey Varas thinks? If that's what's in the best interest of Sporting KC, then that's what's in their best interest. So, they have no obligation. They don't owe anybody anything, especially when they're playing the third game in a week away from Kansas City. Right? This was 3 straight for them, just the same way it was 3 straight for SDFC. The difference was SDFC got to play 2 of the 3 games at home. And they're also playing another game at home coming up next weekend. Sporting KC had to play at Portland 2 Saturdays ago, then at St. Louis, not the longest road trip, but a road trip. And then they also had to come back to the West Coast and play in San Diego. So, and they also were without their best player, which I thought was a huge, huge advantage for SDFC. They were without Dejan Joveljic. He's their leading goal scorer. He was with his wife because his wife's due to give birth or giving birth or whatever. So, I thought that was a huge break for SDFC, which is why it does feel like dropping a couple of points there was disappointing when you just zoom in on the game itself. Now, if you want to zoom out a little bit and look at the week as a whole and talk about 7 out of 9 points, I think that's fair. If you want to zoom out even further and talk about where the team is overall in the standings, I think, that's a fair thing to do as well. But back to the game, it's just that they didn't let anybody have a good game. The only players that really had a good game, like CJ rated really highly. Everybody on the back line rated really highly because Kansas City really wasn't doing anything. They really weren't doing anything. I think they had ended up with 1 shot on target. And, and that shot really was not a great shot. It just was a shot where they were hoping CJ would fumble it and maybe somebody would pounce on a rebound. 1 shot on target for the game. But SDSC had 4 offsides, which isn't a ton, but it's as many as they've had in any other game. They had 10 total shots. That's a really, really low number. And again, they had 10 shots against Seattle. They scored 3 times. So, it's not the be-all, end-all. But the quality of shot, it was just tough. They could not connect any passes. They couldn't get passes through the line. We've seen games where they have 600-700 passes in a game. They had 560. Still a lot, but it's not the way they play. And, a lot of that is Kansas City. And some of it might have been the field. I don't know that I feel when you're doing the game sometimes, you do get a little wrapped up. I was with him. I thought oh, what a great story this is going to be. Milan Olaski's going to come in here and he's going to score a goal coming off the bench. And they're going to have this perfect week. And, it's a storyline. I don't know that he's making the prediction, but I kind of like the idea of that as well. And, there was a time in the game where we looked down on Chucky Lozano, Anders Dreyer, Alex Mighton, Oni Valakari, Milan Olaski are all in this game. That is 5 attacking players in this game. They're throwing the kitchen sink at Sporting KC, and KC, to their credit, just made it really, really difficult. They just eliminated all of the passing lanes. There was no flow to this game at all. It was not a great game to call, if I'm being honest. I mean, I'm very happy to be calling the game, but there was no flow to it. It was a total slog of a game, and I think that's the way Kansas City wanted it to be. And I guess they go home happy with their point on what was a difficult week. They ended up losing 1-0 to Portland on a goal of the year candidate. They took a point from St. Louis, which I think is firing the manager today. I don't know if that's official or not, but Olaf Melberg, it was reported today he's already going to get the sack in St. Louis.
He's the handsome one, right?
He is the handsome one, but he can't coach a lick in this league. Oof. And, coming out to this, second place in the Western Conference and picking up a point there, I would not surprise me. I think that they've got some low ceiling talent there, but they do have some talent. Would not surprise me if Sporting KC finds itself back in the playoff picture by the end of the year. But for the game, it's disappointing. You felt like it was an opportunity to really, to have a week where you could have picked up 9 out of 9 points. Kansas City just, it was like a Rubik's Cube, and you can sort of see Mikey trying to solve the Rubik's Cube there, right there in the technical area. But you couldn't do it, and it just was one of those games. They just were like, we're just not going to let you do much of anything. 20 fouls every time they would foul. It felt like it was going to take something off a set piece. It really did. It felt like it was going to be a corner kick. It felt like it was going to just, it was going to be one goal in this game that was going to be the difference, and couldn't do it. So on to LA Galaxy coming up next week, and a 1:45 game, by the way, a daytime game at Snapdragon Stadium.
Ugh. I'm not looking forward to that. I will not be in attendance for that. I don't think. Can I give you... Okay, so negative spin... It was a boring game. It was probably the most boring game SDFC has played.
I think it's fair.
It was a boring game. It was a muddy game, both literally and spiritually. It felt like, and again in the second half, it felt a little bit like grifting. Like SDFC was like, we're not going to get a good shot, so we're going to get somewhere near the goal and hope for a foul, so we can get a penalty kick or a free kick from close or a corner kick, and score a set piece, like you said. The positive spin for me, and this is one of those things that only comes from rooting for a team, watching every one of their games, and understanding the changes that are happening, is this. Okay, so this team has already had an identity, right? The organization and its future is now crystallizing, which is really cool because you're starting to see not just who are the players on this team. And every week, Mikey Veras gets a little bit closer to this is my perfect starting 11. These are the 11 that I want. He's still tinkering around the edges a little bit, but just around the edges. He's not there yet. But while he's tinkering and getting answers to that, it's also answering questions like, what could the future of this club look like? And Luca Bombino's been playing out of his mind since being put in the starting lineup 3 or 4 games ago.
Mm-hmm. He's played three straight 90-minute shifts.
3 straight 90-minute shifts. He's been great in all of them. McVeigh and McNair on the back line have just been huge success stories this entire year. Verhoeven. Wow. Verhoeven, This was his game. This was the Verhoeven game where he was given a shot, and he got taken out later for Willie Cumato, I believe. But this was kind of his shot to be like, okay, we're not going all in on Willie just yet. We want to see what you have. Another 18-year-old kid, and he was just as good as Luka, if not better. He was fantastic. And that, to me, I'm like looking at CJ. I'm looking at that back line. I'm looking at Yeppe, Chucky, Dreyer, and I'm like, that's your core. Like, Godoy, we don't know if we'll be here in a year or two. Luca De La Torre, we don't know if we'll be here in a year or two. Alex Mighton, I think it kind of depends on whether or not they can find someone who's better than him or if he develops a little bit more into a goal scorer. But they 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these spots I feel like are pretty locked in for the next couple years, contract situations aside. But to me, Verhoeven and Bombino against the Mix Mash brothers, I think Adrian calls them, playing in front of CJ, that feels like a back line that can be the backbone of this team and this defense for a while going forward. Do you agree or disagree?
I would agree. Now, it should be pointed out both Bombino and Verhoeven are here on loan.
Okay.
So, what
might,
exactly, sort of conversations have existed around these two players, I'm not sure. I think Bombino is a loan with an option for SDFC, and he's been great. As a matter of fact, I'm scheduled to interview him tomorrow for the midweek show, so I'm excited about that. I love Verhoeven. I really, really do. I thought what we saw from him, that was eye-popping. And his technical ability, his ability to play with his feet, I thought was sensational. I love the stat so much that I'm going to repeat it here because I can even update it. John, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. There are 14 players in Major League Soccer who have played every minute of every game through 14 games. Okay? 14 of them. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 10 of them are goalkeepers. Chris McVeigh is one of 4 outfield players to have played every minute of every game through 14 games in Major League Soccer this year. For a guy that was sort of an unknown when he came in and looked as a rotation piece, somebody that provided a little bit of depth, that he has been the Iron Man for SDFC. And not only does he do it defensively, he had a play where he had to run after a player who was streaking in on the left side. He tracked the player down. I don't remember exactly who it was, Shallowy maybe. But he keeps up pace-wise. He can score a little bit. He's good in the air. He's been really, really good with his feet. But think about that. There's only 14 players. 10 of them are goalkeepers. And he's one of 4 players, outfield players, who have played every minute this week. But your overall premise, I totally agree with.
And I heard that stat on the broadcast, and first of all, I was like, wow. Second of all...
On what, the telecast or our broadcast?
I was listening to the radio broadcast while watching on Apple TV. So I heard that on the radio broadcast while I was watching on TV, and I was like, wow. And then I was like, he's a big dude, and he runs a lot. And this isn't one of those things where like he plays every minute, but at the end of the game, you can see how tired he is. He just never seems to run out of gas. I don't know how old he is. He just never seems to run out of gas. To answer some questions and raise more, according to Spotrac, Luca Bombino, there is an option to purchase in 2026. Option to purchase his contract in 2026. It does not look like there is yet an option to purchase for Verhoeven. And there's something weird on, maybe you know this because he came over recently, there's something weird on Olaski where it basically says he's on loan until July. Mm-hmm. So he's only here for
the July window. But he's also on loan from the Danish club. That's the sister club of SDFC. So.
Oh, actually, Verhoeven is not listed as a loan. The loans are Olaski, Bombino, and someone named Ferry?
Duran Ferry.
Verhoeven, and they could be wrong, but Verhoeven is not listed as a loan. He's listed as GTD, which I don't know what that is. But it seems like everyone's contract under normal circumstances is listed as GTD.
This is where you can really get in trouble just trying to follow along with some of the MLS rules here because you're like,
only Valakari's on loan with no purchase option. Luca De La Torre's on loan with a purchase option. But it looks like Verhoeven just might be theirs.
I have the transactions in front of me here. I'm just scrolling to get to him. 4/21/25, SDFC acquired defender Oscar Verhoeven on loan from the Earthquakes through the 2025 MLS season.
Wow. Okay. Well, Spotrac's not always right. In this case, I think they're wrong.
Okay. Well, I'm literally reading from the SDFC game notes. So
there you go.
I'm gonna say that I think I had that one right. So
I think you do.
Anyhow, listen. Again, zoom out. 7 out of 9. Crowded week.
It's not terrible.
I think an opportunity to beat Galaxy. Galaxy on Saturday. Galaxy did get their. They do have Gabriel Peck and Joseph Paintsel who are back, but still a historically bad start for Galaxy and the first opportunity for us to see Galaxy in San Diego. So we'll see what that looks like. We know what it was like with LAFC, the good and the bad of having LAFC down here. I don't know what really to expect from Galaxy. I'll get a little more info over the span of the week, but it's never good when you drop points at home, especially against a team that is where they are in the standings like Kansas City is. But, I think I said to you last week, it felt like it was a little bit better than they'd played better under their interim manager, who's a lifelong Kansas City wizard, Kansas City Sporting KC guy. So, they have played better. Man.
I think the teams looked tired.
Yeah,
I think they looked exhausted. We talked about the field, but also the guys were just gassed. It's a lot of those guys playing 3 games in a week, a lot of them playing 90 minutes for each one of those. I mean, that's 270 minutes plus extra time in 7 or 8 days. That's crazy. And look, if like you said, these 3 home games, if San Diego had beaten St. Louis and Sporting KC and tied with Colorado and got the 7 points that way, we'd be like, that makes sense.
Totally.
Yeah. But instead, they beat Colorado, they beat St. Louis, and all of a sudden raised our expectations for Sporting KC because that's a bad team. But 7 points in 3 matches, I'll take it.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It's funny you talk a little bit about the roster, and I haven't mentioned this anywhere, but because I don't even know how many people have noticed this, but Jasper Loffelson has been completely dropped from the squad for the last 2 games. Not even available off the bench, and I have no idea, but I do think Mikey's starting to to figure out who are my guys.
I was also making the point that there may not be an opening for Reyes should he ever get healthy and fit to squeeze into this back line if Mikey really likes these guys. Yeah,
I mean, I would think at some point McVay's gonna need a bit of a break, but based on what? He's been so good. I don't even know what I would base that on.
He just played 270 plus minutes in a week and looked fresh at the end of it.
And he was one of the highest rated players on the team. So it just was it was a funky night. The rain started right before the game, and it didn't really rain until about the 84th, 85th minute or so. It just was. I hate giving Kansas City credit for the style with which they played, and it's up to SDFC to figure that out. And figure out a way to try to break through. But, it just was, like I said, 4 offsides, and 20 fouls against, and, the refereeing was a little dodgy. Did you see a penalty on Chucky in the box? I only saw one look at it. I haven't rewatched the game yet.
Like a penalty should have been called when he went down, that one?
Yeah, inside of the box.
So I made vague reference to this in my post-game write-up on section1904.com. Because I felt like in the first half of this game, they were calling it the ref was calling it very, very close, very tight. Every basically interaction where 2 bodies met was a foul, a dead ball, whatever. And he's handing out yellow cards left and right. And then that one happened where Chucky kind of went down and the other guy went down. It was obvious they made contact, and the referee just kind of was wiped his hands clean and was like, well, whatever, you each kind of flopped, there was contact each way, I'm gonna let that one go. And I wrote about that on the site as I felt like it was a very inconsistent level of physicality that the ref was allowing, and I think Chucky looked at that and he was like, that should have been a foul based on everything you've been calling. And the guy was like, yeah, but also you bumped into him and you flopped a little.
That was my read, is that he pushes the defender down and the referee's like, I'm not going to call it.
Yeah.
And then when Chucky sees that the ball is still live and he goes to get the ball, then the guy kind of kicked at his legs a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
And, was the first one a foul? Probably. Was the second one a foul? Probably. But if you're not going to call the first one. The first one directly led to the second one, so it would have felt a little unfair.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like, it was a penalty in a vacuum, but because Chucky pushed the defender to the ground first, I think he's like, I didn't call that. Now you're doing, so I'm just going to not call anything.
Yeah, it was kind of like, oh, what's fair is fair. But it was really silly after how, the first like 45 minutes of the match was refereed to all of a sudden just be like, well, you guys figure it out on your own.
Yeah. There were lots of booing inside of the stadium on
I
Saturday.
saw, I think it was Adrian said when Godoy got subbed off, he was like, yeah, he went and, whispered something to the referee, or he says he's singing a tune to the referee on his way off the pitch or something. And I was like, I don't know, Godoy, he can be a loudmouth, but he doesn't strike me as the type of dude who's going to be bitching at a ref on his way off the field unless he feels like they screwed up in some meaningful way.
Well, speaking of refereeing, Messi is on the attack with the referees. There's always something going on with the referees, some isolated plays. I think Major League Soccer needs to look a little more closely at the referees. I don't know. They've given up a bunch of goals there. It's not going well in Miami, John.
Did you see his quote where he was like, we have to get right before the Club World Cup? Like, it felt very like, hey, Leo, we need you to push the Club World Cup because, we need everyone to know that you're in it. Like, it was just a weird thing for a player to say in the middle of an MLS season. He's, yeah, we've been playing bad. We're dropping some games. We've got to get right before the Club World Cup. It was just very strange to me.
Well, they're at a CONCACAF Champions Cup. So, it's not like you're needed to promote that tournament any longer. And Leagues Cup is coming up in July. So, I guess he's realizing that in a league where you can win the Supporter Shield and set the single season record for most points in Major League Soccer history, only to get knocked out in the playoffs, I guess he's realizing, like a lot of these leagues, sometimes the urgency of regular seasons isn't as high as it is perhaps in other leagues around the world. I guess. I'm not so sure. But, I noticed that today. Like, it'd be interesting to see if Lionel Messi gets fined or if they just sort of sweep that one under the rug.
Yeah.
John, I have about vacation's officially over for me. As
what time zone are you on?
I'm back on the Pacific time zone, but I have about 7 piles of laundry to do, and my wife's car battery has died while we were away. So I'm going to have to go and fetch a new battery. Now, you are convincing me that this is a task that I can do on my own. I was inclined to jumpstart the car, take it someplace, have the battery tested just to confirm that it's a battery that's dying. It's a 2019 vehicle, so it would make sense. I didn't realize batteries died that quickly. If you would have asked me a week ago, how long does a car battery last? I would have guessed 10 years. Yeah, not the case. Like 3 to 5 years is the average life expectancy of a car battery. Did you know that?
I only know that because for a period of a couple of years, I lived in a downtown condo that had underground parking that had very poor ventilation. So it was always very, very warm under there, which apparently is terrible for batteries. And I replaced, I think, a few different batteries because if you would leave the car there without driving it for like a couple weeks, which sometimes you could do living downtown, then you would go to turn it over and it wouldn't start. And there was a Pep Boys across the street, so I think it was a Pep Boys, and I'd go across the street and I would just be like, hey, I need a battery, and doing it in my dad had an old Porsche Boxster was very difficult. Doing it in a Subaru Forester was a little easier. I think I maybe did it on a friend's car at one point that I told them they could leave it there for a few weeks and their battery died. But you said your wife drives a hybrid. I don't know if that's a different kind of installation.
It has a regular 12-volt battery, but it also has
probably fine then.
The hybrid. I think it's the 12-volt is the one that's dead because we jump-started it yesterday. Now here's another question. Do you own jumper cables?
I used to keep them in the trunk of my car. I don't know that I do anymore.
I used to have them also, and I did a terrible thing where I lent them to somebody, and I have no idea where they are. They haven't been around in forever. And why would you ever lend somebody jumper cables?
Yeah, you just jump their car and go on with your day, right?
What an incredibly stupid, thoughtless thing to do.
Well, how'd you jump the car yesterday? Did you borrow jumper cables?
We have a neighbor who has this fancy device, which I'm currently looking at on Amazon.
Oh, to start your car?
Yeah, this is something I feel like I should have in my garage. It is a car battery jump starter.
Yeah, I've seen those. Those are
so you plug it in, you charge it, and then you zap it. And we did this yesterday, and we actually got the Prius running. Took it for a drive, went up the Strand, and then went to start it a little later after we got home last night, and it died again. So I'm guessing
Darren,
it's just a bad battery.
I know there's no ads on this show, at least not now or maybe anytime soon. But as someone who listened to a lot of the Darren Smith show on the Mighty 1090 specifically, I can tell you probably need to go to O'Reilly, and they'll get you set up with a new battery. I think if I remember the ads correctly, they'll even install your new battery for you.
Oh, they will?
I think so.
But I have to get the car there. So I have to jump it
there.
again, get it to O'Reilly Auto Parts, buy the battery. What do you think a battery costs?
$100?
I don't know.
Oh, we haven't looked at this. Okay, I don't know.
What do you think? Let's play Prices Right rules. You're going to say how much? Don't look it up yet.
Okay.
12-volt battery. I don't know. What do they call it? Like Everlast or something? Everstrong?
Yeah, Everstart.
I'm going to say $129.99.
I'm going to go over. I'm going to say it's like $150.
Leah, how much do you think a car battery costs? $250. She said $250. She's already looked.
She said $250.
I don't know about that though. Seems high.
It depends on what you get. I'm on Walmart.com, and there's a version of it that's $95, and there's a version of it that's $200. So I don't know. I think they're all right.
I think she's high on that one.
$250's high. I don't know what kind of battery she's looking at.
Yeah, I don't know. And it's just the 12-volt. Here's the problem with when you Google 2019 Prius battery, it gives you the hybrid battery. It's like $3,000.
Yeah, that's
I don't use that.
Good luck installing a new one of those.
But you think you think I'm competent enough that I can do this on my own?
I think so. I mean, I've done it before, and it was not that hard. Make sure you look up make sure you Google like which one to connect first. But yeah, once you have the order correct, it's literally like it just sits in a box. You disconnect it, you pull it out of the box, you put the new one in the box, you connect it, and then turn it on and go for a drive.
I'm mildly insulted. My wife's like, "Really? You think you can do that?" It's like, I'm not as incompetent as I look around the house.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can't do anything else around a car. I could put some, windshield washer fluid in, but I'm not changing the oil or anything. So I get it. It seems like a thing that you would go to a mechanic for. But, when the car was dead in my underground parking garage, there was no way for me to get it to the Pep Boys. So I had to learn how to do this myself.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll buy you one of these portable car battery jump starters. They're $39.99 right now.
Wow, that's a good price, I think.
I'll go check it out at O'Reilly Auto Parts first, though.
All right.
O'Reilly. Yeah, we had to borrow it. I don't know. The car's in the garage. That's an interesting observation that you made. That garage batteries go quicker than batteries that are not stored in garages.
Just because the heat. Just because it's hotter in there.
Huh. Interesting. Very interesting observation.
We did have that. You missed that hot weekend, right? The weekend where it was like 85 to 90 degrees.
Yeah.
You were in Spain for that. So, yeah, maybe that just melted your car battery. It sucked all the juice out of it.
And it does feel like it's in the window of battery life.
There you go.
It's reasonable to think that it just died. Mm-hmm. Especially 2 weeks not being used, 2 weeks plus of not being used. So, well, we do have about 6 or 7 loads of laundry. We're down to the last things that we have available. So that's that. Did we get to everything? I think we did. By the way, we have made Friday's podcast. If you missed it, don't think we mentioned this earlier, but if you missed Jeff Reuter of The Athletic, who joined us to talk to us a little bit about what it is that's happening in Nashville with Brigada de Oro, which is the supporters group, the mostly he didn't say Latin. I guess he did say Latin.
He did say Latin.
Latin-populated supporters group, who have decided to not go to Nashville games. I know we had some feedback on that. We do appreciate it. Thank you very much, including from Michelle. My first reaction was to skip this episode because of it being about soccer. But I'm so glad I listened. What's happening is horrific, and the discussion was spot on. Thanks for also bringing up the issue of whether Pride Nights and inclusivity are in jeopardy going forward. Of course they are. Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate that. By the way, you shouldn't say no to a podcast because it's just soccer. Like some of the soccer talk we make available and hopefully interesting to everybody, whether it's your favorite sport or not your favorite sport. So give it all a chance.
Speaking of our dear listeners, because I shouted some out last week, I'll just shout out some new ones that came in the last day or two. Dylan, Alan, Mark, Hayden, James, and Joy have all subscribed in the last, I think, 24 hours. So thank you for them.
I also realized that I've been a bit negligent of my responsibilities on the Discord. So if you want access to the Discord and you want to subscribe to Section 1904, that would be great. So I've started posting a couple pictures. It's tough keeping tabs on all these different platforms, posting things on Instagram, posting things on Blue Sky. Every once in a while, posting something over on X, which continues to be one of the worst platforms available for humans.
I know. This is why I like the Discord, though. And we're finally getting to this place where it doesn't require you and me showing up and being the dancing bear on stage to get everyone going. The community has started talking to each other, sharing stories and tips and pictures with each other. I saw the other day someone asked if we could have a politics channel. And he said, I want a politics channel just so I can say fuck Trump because I want to see what the reaction is. And so there's a couple other people who coincided. I created a politics channel. The guy, true to his word, started off with fuck Trump. And then it turned into a good discussion from several different members of the Section 1904 community before you or I even looked at it or got involved in any way. So that's how this is supposed to work. It's not necessarily me and Darren entertain you guys. It is the community coming together, being real people, being authentic with each other, being respectful with one another. It's a great place. I really like what the Discord is turning into.
Yeah, I'm playing a little catch up, like I said, with my laundry, with our vehicles, some of the stuff around the house. I gotta have a railing painted here. So we got a lot going on. But that's your Monday recap. We'll do it again Tuesday. We had some NBA coming up a little later on this week, and we do have a couple of guests, which we'll let you know. There's always other content. John did a good breakdown on that hitch that we discussed last week regarding Fernando Tatis Jr., so I hope people had a chance to see what it was that John concluded and his hypothesis on that walk-off home run from last week against the Anaheim Angels. So get a load of that, and there will be more and more of this kind of thing. It's not just going to be a daily podcast for an hour a day. It's going to be a lot more stuff going on here.
Yep.
So we're just generally going to be flooding you with all sorts of content and other things that we have lined up for you here as we get this puppy rolling. John, enjoy the rest of your Monday, and hopefully I will survive the battery installation and be back to do it again tomorrow.
Best of luck to you, Darren.